All right. Welcome back to another edition of Mad Mondays with JB. Used to be Murder Mondays, but I've altered the title and probably will alter this again as we go forth until I get happy with what I'm going to call it. Very privileged today to have my man Leon Thomason in the room. One of my good mates that I was luckily enough to meet in Queenstown last year and share a few beers with and have a good time. Super successful young lad like myself, I like to think. And we're here today to try and spread the message on mental health in our relevant industry. So obviously, Leon's a very successful multi-startup. We won't use the E word.
Thank you.
Yeah. We don't like to throw that out cheaply. And obviously, my world as a former police officer and now as a private investigator. So without any further ado, the floor is yours. Tell the crowd what they want to hear.
And thank you for having me. I like the Mad Monday. Mad Monday suggests that we're starting with a bang. And I suppose that's kind of where I am. It's the E word that we don't like to use. We had a brief conversation about that earlier, and I don't even want to say it. It's a dirty word. I feel like it's an outdated word. So I'm going to replace the E word, and just so people out there listening know, we're touching on entrepreneur, but we both hate it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change it to enthusiast, and it's the million-mile-an-hour enthusiast.
That is good. That is good. We spoke about that earlier with business. You don't always have the ups; you've got the downs as well. So when you've got the momentum, you got to ride that wave, and you got to ride it aggressively because that wave doesn't last forever. And I think you epitomise that in business. So I'm very happy to have you on the show, and I know we share very similar interests when it comes to mental health, business, trying to stay motivated. So I'm really looking forward to this episode, and probably going to be one of the more serious episodes that I have on Mad Mondays because obviously my passions are investigations, sport, and socializing. So if we got to be serious sometimes, and I think mental health plays a very important role in all that stuff, especially for young men.
Yeah, it really does. And I suppose a little bit of a background on myself. So I've got a very big passion for business, and a lot of that is around startup business, but it's about recognizing an opportunity and just making the most of that opportunity. But mental health is a topic that's very close to my heart. Well, it's being a Kiwi, like everyone's affected by mental health in some way or another. But in business and at the kind of pace that we try to run, you need something to reset. And I don't know, for me and what I'll probably be talking about in some way, shape, or form is a lot of my businesses revolve around marketing, and a lot of that is about reaching the masses with a message and trying to control the perception and the influence of that. And when it comes down to mental health, like a lot of my theories come from the knowledge of what happens within marketing, how people are influenced, but then where my passion comes from is marrying that with what's happening in New Zealand at the moment in mental health.
100%.
And I feel like there is a slight disconnect between what is available through marketing methods compared to what's happening.
Yeah.
And at some point it will catch up, but at the moment it's the issue in New Zealand is a lot bigger than what we're doing to combat it. And obviously with the advancement of social media, like we're in this environment now where you compare your life to the life of other people's on the daily, and
chasing
it's like
the Joneses, keeping up with them.
Yeah, and I'm only sharing the good parts of my life, but obviously through working the way that we do, like there's hard times.
100%. Can I just stop you there? I've got you live on the phone here, and man, that mustache is looking tops. I'm proud to have someone better looking than me on the podcast, so that's great. That's great. Let's go into mustaches while we're here. Oh,
Yep.
by the way,
Perfect.
we're into double digits for live viewers as well. Very topical because we're going to be talking about mental health in the police, and I've got a couple of Queensland police officers watching at the moment. So Danielle and Todd, thanks for tuning in. It's haven't seen you guys for a long time, and certainly missed the days of working and having beersies with you. So let's touch on the mustache. We had a bit of a yarn just before we went live about carrying on after Movember.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then
So this is a real identity crisis for me because yeah, it's funny. It was a Movember grow. Yeah, and so you start fresh, and I've had a moustache once before in my life, and when I had that moustache, I went beard back to it, and I think this year coming up to it, I was lulled into this false sense of security. I was like, nah, it happened really easy last time, and I got all the way through November, and it took me that long to grow this thing. So you get to the end of November and you get into December, and that's where you start getting hit with. And actually, it was a really cool effort. This year I had all my staff do Movember with me.
Nice.
And it was different levels. You had little wispy ones. You had big, the old Tom Selleck, which I like.
Magnum PI.
Magnum
Yeah.
PI.
My favourite.
You got to love it.
Not biased at all.
Yeah, because moustache is obviously very big in the PI game.
Oh, if you can't grow a mustache, you can't be an old school male detective.
No, I believe it.
Certainly wouldn't suggest any of the females out there try and grow a mustache just to try and compete in that old sort of perception. But my old man was a very good detective, had a mustache.
Yeah.
I couldn't name how many of my superiors when I was a detective had a mustache, and sort of, if you didn't have one,
if you didn't have
your
one.
weight. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. So you get into December, and you do, every person that you walk into, oh, you got a moustache. Oh, you've just let Movember carry on, and then you get into January, and everyone kind of starts to accept it.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, okay, he's actually doing this.
Yeah.
But it is an identity crisis.
I ran with that up until today, because it's actually my wedding anniversary today.
Congratulations.
So,
what year?
Number two. Year number two, and my wedding present.
Yeah, clean face.
Got rid of
Yeah.
got rid of the stash.
That's fresh, is it?
Yeah, shaved this morning, bro. I've been out, like I said, I've been out on the boat for the whole week last week, so I was very castaway looking. So,
yeah, I want to know about that. You ready to start?
Yeah. We'll touch on. We'll recap last week in light of talking about mental health, because, like for me, my zone out from work is fishing. I found a real love and a real passion for game fishing, not bottom fishing. So we're not talking about, whilst I love it, snapper and kingfish and, the occasional pooker, I'm all about game fishing, because in a world that is so, boom, instantaneous, and everyone's chasing instant gratification in no matter what we're doing, game fishing is one of the only things left in this world where you're slow. You're trawling at 7 knots an hour, and you might go 10, 12 hours without anything. You're out wide, you've got no phone reception.
What does that do to mental health?
Oh,
12 hours,
mate,
waiting for that fish?
Oh, the clarity. Well, you're drinking beers, so it's all good, man.
Yeah.
Well, for those that drink. So, mate, I love it. We got a really good crew this year. So you never game fish. Well, people do, but I don't game fish on my own. So we've got a really good crew.
Yeah.
So while we're on that, Greg Morgan, father-in-law, great skipper on opportunity too. Terry Lamb from Whangarei, one of the best mechanics you'll ever meet. Blokes, IQs off the Richter scale.
Yeah.
And then my two Ahipara boys, Leighton Matthews, charter skipper for Charisma Charters. Little plug there. You're welcome. And my man, Johnny Stewart, who runs the Ngā Tokoro 90 Mile Beach Snapper Bonanza. So
Great.
two free plugs there for all you boys. Awesome week. It was really, really good. So we managed to get a marlin. And we got a shortbill spearfish, which
I've seen that. I've seen that. It's a good fish.
I'd never seen one before until that day, and we pulled it up on the boat, and it's unreal sashimi. It was the nicest eating fish I've ever had. So
now you're talking. And the opportunity too. That's a charter. It's a private charter.
No. So it used to be a dive boat in Wellington. So it's a Don Senior 43 footer. So I think its maximum occupancy was 19 people. But I think when the America's Cup did the parade through the viaduct, we would have had close to that on it. But that's the only time I've ever seen it. It was heavy, man. It was a sinker through the water. So, look, that was my last week. So that's why last week on our show, it was a pre-record because I was out fishing and probably halfway to Chile. So But yeah, man, that's my that's how I combat my sort of anxiety and stress in the world.
Yeah,
So,
well, can we? Because obviously, in your line of work, it's the way I look at it from an outsider's view is it's a very stressful line of work, and it's a lifestyle, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You never turn off.
Never. You
Never
can't.
turn
And
off.
every single police officer that's watching at the moment, and there is a few, will share that same sentiment in that you've got jobs, and no matter, you might be on leave, you might be spending time with your family, you might be doing something simple as going to the restaurant. You're always sitting with your back to the door,
Yeah,
watching who's coming through, watching who's going by, just quasi-analyzing everything, you just don't stop. And it
yeah,
just, humans are like a candle, man. You've got a wick. No one knows how big that wick is, and eventually, once it runs out, there's no coming back. So it's all about trying to put in methods that can combat that. And I'm lucky because I've been really good in my life, and I've been not ashamed to talk about mental health. And
yep,
that's one of the things I really like about having you on the show. And I've written down on our short little notes here to mention Tangaroa Walker. So Farm for Life, huge raps, following you on social media at the moment, and you're doing the push-up challenge, and you're a huge advocate for mental health. So raps to you, bro. You're a legend. So that is the focus of this session is, what we can do to be better, what's being done that's great, and, the change that we've seen in the generation, like our generation, man, we just talk about mental health like it's nothing, eh? Like you and I mean, there are still people that don't, but we can talk about anxiety, we can talk about depression, we can talk about, how if I ever went to a psychologist, man, I'd probably get diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder.
yep. I believe that.
But because I can talk about it to you, and there's no shame in doing it, it's just a couple bros having a yarn. You don't have those symptoms, and you're not symptomatic of those issues. So it's that's how I combat it. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's
And
amazing.
so for the people out there listening to us as well, if you have any questions, fire them through. We do have a live feed in front of us, so we will see those come up. But
Don't shave the mo. The mo is a lifestyle.
yeah, perfect. It is.
Do you know John Trail?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
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 I
yeah.
do. Yeah. Hey, Johnny.
Shout out, John. Don't shave the mo, Leon.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm for that for sure.
How good? How good?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Because to explain my businesses, a lot of them do revolve around social media. So Flight Digital is a marketing agency that we just have the most incredible team of people. We have they're absolute all stars in their field. But when we're talking about mental health and people like Tangaroa, it's such a amazing channel, but there's two sides to the channel.
Yeah.
Because obviously with the advancement of social media, we're now in this environment where you do compare lives. But what's your views on using social media to combat it? Like obviously, it's. Do you think there's enough there being done currently?
I think yes. Not probably. You'll never have enough, but it's positive the growth. I think like if we try and really look at a glass half full scenario, we've got like an New Zealand's what I'd call him well and truly an influencer in Tangaroa. He's got 250,000 followers on Farm for Life.
Yep.
And he's just advocating really aggressively in that mental health space. There's lots of young professionals in the industry trying to. I mean, I don't really have a social media platform. Micro
I don't know,
influencer.
micro influencer over here.
And I'm really big on it. Like I did a lot of work with the foundation It Ain't Weak to Speak, which is Australian based on the Gold Coast.
Yep.
So I did a couple of marathons, or half marathons, probably trying to give myself a big pat then, only a half one. But I buy their clothing and I try and up until Salty Crew came on board. Shout out Salty Crew. I used to purchase their clothing and wear it, and try and just get that message out. And if you can just do enough to get one person to talk, it's never enough, but it's such a good thing, because like there are going to be people, no matter what we do, that aren't going to talk and are going to suffer in silence. I know police officers that have done it, some of the most outspoken people you can meet, just struggling, man. And that's what I was really keen to talk on today, because hopefully, a lot of current police in both Australia and New Zealand will be watching this podcast, basically because I'm on it, and they just want to see what sort of shit I'm going to be talking about. And
Hey, it's topical. It's great.
Oh, mate,
We're
and
making a difference here.
man, I can spin a yarn. And I've got so many people that are watching: Andy Fully, Muzza, Fitzy, Holly, Callum. Yeah, my boy from Patamahoe, represent. They all know that I can just talk absolute scrap. So I'm going to use that for good for once.
Cool, perfect. Well, let's. I want to get into the deeper details because obviously your profession to me is mind blowing. Like it takes a very strong person to look at a tough situation and try help people out of that. But mental health plays a part on both sides. Like obviously, a lot of the issues that you're dealing with come from
Yep.
hard parts in people's lives. But I want to know what is the hardest parts of your job? Like, is it the late nights, or is it the things you see out on the job, or what takes the hardest toll on your mental health?
Yeah, and I think that's subjective to each person. Like if you would ask me that, the late nights and the never being at home and just the working all the time, man, I loved it because I was a single bloke. I
Yeah.
had no family commitments. I had none of that. So for me, that wasn't an issue. But for someone that's got a family, and you've got, we're in a world where it's so expensive to live, and you've got dual incomes, and you're never spending time together, and your relationship suffers, and that's when divorces happen, and cheating happens, and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's a huge factor for police,
Yeah.
but not me personally, because I was always single and just having a mad time when I wasn't working. So I was happy to do the work, and I felt good doing the work and doing Rockhampton. All the coppers in Rockhampton, if any of them watch, will know, man, the roster, the fatigue management does not exist
Yeah.
in police. They would just work this, work that, and you're a yo-yo. You had no consistency.
What are the systems though? What are the systems in place to look after people in that situation? Because it is a slippery slope.
Yep.
Like
It really
I
is.
sit here and my stance on mental health, like I've always been an optimist over a pessimist, and
Yep.
I do contribute a lot of that to my parents being
Yep.
just dirty hippies, great people, lovely people. But it is a matter of like I know when I need to call it quits,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
in the police force, what's set up to look after people? Because you see, I can imagine that you have one instance, and it is that post-traumatic stress,
Just, yep.
and that to me, like being out of my industry, going and seeing that would it could put me on like a downward spiral,
Yeah.
even being in the mindset that I have.
It was really hard for me because when I was in, I'm not going to mention any names or anything like that, but a few people watching, I can see, will know who I'm talking about. Yeah, the chip in charge, Stephen. How good. One of my old bosses, he went down with some mental illness, and I respected the hell out of him, and he was one of the toughest buggers and one of the best investigators, the QPS had at the time. He was so well respected, and someone as tough as that to go down, but be brave enough to talk about it, was absolutely amazing. And around that time, there was a lot of things like the Thin Blue Line and a lot of different, police dedicated mental health channels were in existence.
So what is the thin blue line? So it's a brand new thing to me.
So the Thin Blue Line basically is a representation of the police because we've got such a big world, and there's that very thin layer, which is
Yeah.
the police, and
It's the lighter blue that I'm
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
of?
yeah. It's a light
Yeah.
light blue, and basically, police are the first person you call on when you're in trouble, regardless of what you think about the police. Like the amount of times when I was a copper and we got called to disturbance, that 99% of the time they used to think you were a C word. They used to go, you're a bloody revenue raiser. You're a piece of shit. You're this, you're that. But as soon as there's an issue, you're the first person they call.
Yeah.
And as a police officer, you've got to take every single job on its merit, and you can't have those pre-disclosed ideas of people,
Yeah.
and that takes a toll. So that Thin Blue Line really represents a band of brothers and sisters that are unified against the world.
And do you think if someone is not weak-willed, but do you think it does need a strong-willed person to become a police officer?
Oh, 100%. And like a perfect example is I was a first responder to a homicide in Logan where the stepfather had fatally stabbed the stepdaughter, and we were just happened to be closest to the scene, so we beat the general duties police, because I was a detective at the time.
Yeah.
Beat the general duties team to that scene, and so we had to respond. We had to apprehend the suspect at the time. Then we had to go in and try and save this girl's life, which we were unsuccessful in doing because she was fatally stabbed through the heart, and
Yeah.
it was one of the most chaotic scenes ever. And there was police doing things. There was police that just had that exact the shock where they just freeze and they can't do anything. So that fight or flight sort of behavior. So that's where that willpower plays in. So some people can just be super aggressive and know what they got to do. And it was an amazing team effort that day. And again, I said this last week, is I take no credit for any of the work that I talk about, because I know that it's a teamwork. Everyone, there's big teams involved in any investigation. through operation right through to the apprehension and the trackers. So we would have had, it's still a bit of a blur to me, but we would have 6 or 7 people, you know, and we must be doing all right because our phones are going off the Richter scale while we're sitting here talking, you know. So
we're good.
yeah. So anyhow, the reason I talk about that job specifically is because you did have different people with willpower. You know, you had the people that were trying to resuscitate the body. You had people that were just frozen and couldn't do anything. You had officers that were crying because it was so traumatic, and everyone just reacts differently. And you don't really know who you are until you're in that situation.
Do you think after all this time and everything that you've seen, because I can't link any situation in my life to anything similar to that. It's so far beyond my logic. And do you think you do become numb to these things over time?
And you know, that's where relationships and that suffer, because like I'm really blunt, and I've seen some shit, and like what I've seen is a drop in the wind compared to some people that have worked at the police. You know, like Toddy, who's watching now, you know, he's been in the job for decades and decades, still a handsome bugger, but he's been there for a long time, and he should look a lot older than he does. And like the shit he would have seen, you know, and different roles he's had in the police, and you take your hat off to just the strength of those people to be able to keep getting up every single day and keep going and doing that shit. Because I've left, you know, and what I do now, you couldn't pay me enough money to go back and do what I used to do.
Yeah,
couldn't pay me enough, and you know, like I went through that stress, and I went through the stress of a startup and trying to, you know, get up that hill, so you can ride that momentum. And you know, like when I first started, and there was no work, I didn't have clients, and I was trying to just try and be aggressive to get on. And you know, there was times where I had $14 in my bank account and I had $1,000 worth of business bills to pay. Yeah, that stress, you don't really have that in the coppers because you've got that guaranteed income coming in. You know, so
and that's a really hard thing to balance as well, because like at that same point, you know, mental health, there's a lot you can do around mindfulness, and there's a lot you can do yourself, but you can't exactly go out on a boat and fish without money.
Because diesel's expensive, man.
Diesel's expensive, man.
So is alcohol, taxes.
Yeah, and losing lures to big fish. You
know, mate, we gave one away for the first prize, and it was a big teaser. Like, it's a lure about this bloody big.
Oh, I can see the passion, man. You love it.
Bro, it was a $500 lure. I'm like, whew. Even though it's a teaser, man, if a Marco shark or something come up, they'd snatch that and run away. Yeah. Like, we had a Marco hit a witch doctor. Any fisherman out there will know what a witch doctor is. And how it didn't snap it, mate. We had shark teeth in the witch doctor. Like, it bit it that hard and just ripped their teeth out. It's gnarly, but
yeah. So that's your main avenue. So is that the only real thing you do to bring yourself back to earth?
Sport, and this is why Mad Monday exists, because like there's 3 things I'm really passionate about in life, and obviously Spice will put a fishing logo up there.
I think you need a fishing logo. Yeah,
that's next week's agenda. I'll scrap the 2 police ones, and I'll go one more for fishing. But so socializing, I love being social, man.
Yeah, like,
Well, that just ties in with Mad Mondays, because I've seen a lot of footballers look like that after the football season. So we're actually going to get buddy Hazy was going to come on and have a yarn, because he's a
good sort of.
Mate, we have enough Mad Monday sessions just talking about the shit we got up to in Queenstown. Yeah, buddy, so
you might need a beeper for that one. You might need a beep
every second word. But so I have a few avenues. Sports one of them, a huge one. So since I've been over here, I really got into rugby union. So a few of the rugby boys are commenting on it at the moment, which is amazing. Stephen Lacey, JB, the big question on everybody's mind is, where will you be playing footy this year?
Oh.
Will it be Karaka? Will it be Patamahoe?
Well, you were telling me you might have a location change recently.
I do want to go up to the north. Like, my idea would be to live in the Bay of Islands. Best place in the world.
I was actually up there last weekend.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, a hole in the rock by jet ski.
Oh, yeah. Like, anyone in New Zealand that doesn't go up to the Bay of Islands, you're missing out, because it's an absolute gem of a place. So if I could live there, say Kitty or somewhere like that, I would go up there. But work dependent, you know, I've got too much on at the moment to sort of consider that. But that would be, and there's a good way to combat mental health. Yeah. Being in a holiday house every single day of the year, you know.
Have you ever spoken to a professional about it?
No.
No?
Don't want to.
Because obviously the police must have a pretty stringent...
Yep. So, I mean, as a recruit, when you go through the recruiting process, you've got to speak to shrinks and stuff, and they assess you to work out how much of a risk you are, whether you're going to sort of, you know, go down that line and then become a risk to them and that. But other than that, no.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I need to. Like, I know I have problems.
Is that something that you're kind of brought up with though?
Nah,
No,
not
you
at
think
all.
it's like is it something that you can learn though, that resilience, that kind of strength around mental health?
I think it's like everyone that's on this that's watching knows that I'm a confident human being.
Yeah.
So like talking about mental health doesn't
It's
take
the,
it.
is that the Aussie coming through?
It
That's
could be
the
could be
yeah
Central Queensland boy,
yeah.
born
There
and
you
bred.
go.
But like I'm not ashamed to talk about it, and that's because of people like the likes of yourself and Tangaroa. They make it comfortable to talk about it. It's other people in our same generation that are like, bro, let's have a yarn, or bro, let's catch up. And I've done it. I've had people call me that have when I used to be in the police. When we used to go to attempted suicides and stuff like that. Like policing, there's 3 stages to the mental health cycle. There's before the investigation, there's during the investigation, then there's after the investigation, and all 3 of them have their own sort of issues, if you want to call it. So you're like before it, if you've been doing a job like that before, you're gonna have shit going through your head. When you're at the job, you don't know what's happening because you're reacting, and you're cutting people down off ropes. Just all sorts of shit, bro.
It's tough, man. It's tough, and so for me, like one of the biggest things that I struggle with is the actual fact of someone sitting there and not thinking there's another way, or not thinking there's another way out. And as Kiwis, everyone's affected by mental health in some way or another. It was actually September just this year being, I lost my latest friend to suicide, and
Yeah.
it was probably the closest out of probably the 7 cases that I've had in my life.
Yep.
And it was an incredible thing for me, knowing someone who was this happy, outgoing, incredible human being who I liked a lot, but he just couldn't see another way out. And I don't know, for me, that's put me on a little bit of a path of trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
And the New Zealand government, I think they're amazing. I think we live in such a beautiful place, which is again why it's hard to understand this suicide problem that we have. And it's known by everyone that it is an increasing number year after year, but we live in this country where I'm 28 years old. I'm talking about going to the Bay of Islands last weekend.
Yeah.
Not many people have it like that.
No, and I'm very fortunate. Like that's the thing is, I don't say luck because luck is reserved for lotto and pokies.
Yeah.
Like everything that I've enabled myself to do has come from hard work, and it's from having the nuts to leave Australia, come to New Zealand, not knowing what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And then just backing myself to be better than everyone else in my industry and get the work.
Let's putting a bit of a spin on it though. Let's say, because we're both people who mental health, we are combating it in our own ways, and that's a way to chill out. Me myself.
Yeah. What about you? What do you do?
I've got some fun. I've got a lot of fun.
Yarns, and more yarns.
It's by the weekend, because that's the big difference between myself and you. Like I have jobs that are considered desk jobs. I got very soft hands.
Your keyboard hands. Yeah,
they're great. They're fantastic.
The
hardest thing that I get, it's funny because I live with a few builders, and I come home hard day digging through a scurrier, and I'm like 5 o'clock hits. The sun comes in the window. I can't see the computer screen. It's havoc. It's manic. But for me, I ride my dirt bike.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
It's like last Friday, fairly stressful week, just really big week. It was just early mornings, late nights. I got to Friday, the sun was going down, and I just blasted out the west coast just by myself.
Okay.
Just boost down the beach, back 100 k's an hour.
Where do you go to?
Karitahi,
yeah, nice.
mainly.
My closest beach to my house.
Oh, really? I'm actually an old Waiku kid.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm a Waiapa boy.
Oh, cool.
Well, relocated, but bro.
Great place, and it's a slower pace down there.
It's awesome, bro.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's great. Yeah, and so I've definitely got my avenues that I turn to, but let's say you were actually struggling, and it was that downward slope. Like in New Zealand, obviously there's a lot of organisations and a lot of things happening, but I look at these organisations and I'm like, they're doing things.
Is it
But
enough?
if I have an issue, do I turn to them?
Nah, see, for me personally, it's having someone that you can go to that's close knit. You need to find someone that you can just turn to and go, shit's real. This is where I'm at. I've got like 10 of those people, like, because I've known you for a couple months, bro. If I had an issue, I have no issues just going, Leon, What's the go? And because I know you'd say, all right, let's catch up for a beer and have a chat. You just got to have those people you trust, you know, and like Tangaroa was another one. Not that I'd ever friggin' down being in Invercargill, but like if I was, you know, I'm sure he would catch up. You know, same as the bro Rebet, but he's never in New Zealand. You know, there's these people that you can just call upon.
That's quite a extrovert thing to do, though.
Exactly, and not everyone is like me, and that's the thing is when we talk about this, it's so hard to come up with a plan because everyone's so different. You know, like there are introverts, there are people that don't want to talk about it and they suffer in silence. You know, and so that's where I suppose you've got to have your social media where people can just engage organically without feeling the need to reach out, and they can just have content that may be able to help them.
Well, that's a really big thing, and it's actually something that I've been talking to a few people about, and it's about creating.
The Cuzzy Tangaroa's just chimed in by
Is
the
he
way.
in?
Yeah.
Is in.
Shout out to Farm for Life.
He's heard us talking about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. No, but yeah. So what I was saying there is it's well, I don't know. Social media. It's about making it a positive place, and like if I'm gonna say anything now, because I have actually been working with quite a few life coaches and people who have come to me struggling. I've been saying, go see this lady, and this is where I'm going to do a really good shout out to a lady, a very good friend of mine, Denise Boston, just a very, very positive person, and she helps people through everything from losing weight to quitting smoking, and she's helped quite a few younger people through depression.
Yep.
And the thing, and this was saying about the generations and the culture, is when we first started talking about what she was doing to help these kids with depression and how to beat it, was telling them to turn off social media.
Yeah, right.
Because you recognize social media as the trigger point.
Yep.
But with her, we've kind of developed this plan and tried to change the culture of it, because like social media doesn't need to be a negative space, but if we can start to create a culture around social media where where you remove the messages that you don't like and replace it with positive messages, and there's so many things out there like that. There's something called the good quote.
Yep.
And the good quote is just daily positive reinforcement.
Yeah,
there's a lot about and being in that kind of startup space, you know, we're really subjective to positive messages coming in. It's saying, hey, have a good Monday, and you're like, whoa, yeah, okay. Now it's time to have a good Monday. And how's that for a concept though? Imagine someone who you know is struggling and trying to get through to them that let's set this one exercise in motion, and every single day that you wake up, I want you to remove 3 negative things from social media. Don't worry about how that's going to make the other thing feel. If it's a person within your friend circle who doesn't necessarily make you feel good when you see these things, it's better to remove those messages. But if you remove 3 a day and replace it with 3 positive messages per day, think about what it does over a year.
It starts the you know, the slippery slope to positivity. You know.
Yeah, and like I'm not much for scrolling. It's taken a long time for me to get to the point where I don't scroll as much as I used to. But I'm just such a firm believer in that.
Come fishing. You can't scroll. You got no reception.
No reception.
No reception, bro.
If you're inviting me fishing, I'm in. I've got my first. I hope my flatmates are listening to this, because it was a team effort, but I like to claim it as my fish.
Yeah, nice.
First marlin last year.
Mate, we're doing all right, because one of our favourite ladies of all time, Hinamo Aldo, is tuning in. G'day,
she's
Hinny,
in.
the legend herself.
The legend.
I'm just sort of like going through. Mate, look, John Trail, absolutely true, mate. He goes, I hope there will be more support for cops in the future, since my son told me on the weekend he wants to be a cop, and I support him 100%. Absolute legend, John. And there will be. There's a lot of people pushing for support for police officers. So, and you know, I'm one of them. So,
awesome.
I'm just trying to keep track of everyone that's coming in. It's going a bit crazier than I want. Blake Wallace, the superstar of the Toronto Wolfpack, that's just made it into the Super League. He's tuned in. And he does call me by my quasi name, Johnny Wallace. Very fitting for Mad Mondays, because we got up to a bit of mischief back in the day when we were in Rockhampton together. So good fun. On that note, let's you know, we've covered mental health pretty well so far. We're at 35 minutes. We got 5 more minutes. Let's talk about something a little bit more lighthearted.
Yep.
Let's talk about the three best things you took out of Queenstown, spending time with 100 of the biggest other power
Easy.
movers in the country.
Easy.
Floor's
Not a
yours,
thing.
bro.
It's on. It's written here actually. Learn, share, and repeat.
The cult.
Learn, share, and repeat. So, on previous episodes, how much have you talked about the Power Moves Retreat?
Well, I've only done 1 week of this, so 0.
Yep. Cool. Perfect. Because what an incredible mix of people.
Oh, mate.
Doers, motivators, shakers. But what I've learned more than anything from that is collaboration.
Yep.
And it's there's amazing people out there in this, in Auckland and in New Zealand. But I had one thing that I was running through my mind the whole time, and I really feel like it's something we need to get together and do. And just to give you a bit of background on the Power Moves Retreat is this was a very carefully orchestrated room full of people in one of New Zealand's most amazing settings, and it was put together by Rebecca Hollis. But I could not get out of my mind, if we get that exact same group of people together again, and you get a whiteboard behind you,
the damage we could do.
Write mental health on the top of that board, and just have a brainstorm with those 50 people. And it's learn, share, and repeat. And it's just like someone's going to say something that's going to trigger something else, and something else is going to happen, and something else is going to happen. But we've just got to be open, and it's part of being a Kiwi. You know, we do like collaboration, we do like meeting people. So
100%.
So first, if you're saying 3 things, it's learn, share, and repeat.
For me, it was, you read all these books about business, and I've read 1 or 2 now, basically, because I come from governance my whole life. So to go from that to trying to start a business that goes more than just your solo PI, to building, I've got a team of 8 now that work around the country.
Yep.
And it was that thing about keeping friends with successful people. And that Power Moves Retreat, there was just such a broad range of people with varying ranges of success. So we're not talking wealth success, we're talking, relationship success. Shout out to Bruce Pilbro, who talked about the values of his wife.
Yeah, Bruce.
Legend.
Yeah.
Then we talked about, let's say, Rob Lee, talked about what he did in his role as an CEO and the success there in business structure. And then, we talk about, yourself in the SEO space. And then I got up and I had a little bit of a yarn about the shit I did as a PI. And it was just amazing how we had, success. People just brand success with money. And the success comes in such a broad range. And so to have so many successful people with different ranges of success was just amazing. And from that, I've harnessed such great relationships. And the other thing I took was culture. Something that's overlooked so much in any business is culture. Like the police has a culture and subcultures, but the one thing that was just everyone sort of circled back to was culture. And, for me, that was a huge thing. And, like I've set up different things now from that purely around culture. And I'm trying to really, really learn at a rapid rate Te Reo Māori, and trying to incorporate that into my business however I can, because I know that it's such an important thing to New Zealand. And if like Australia did what New Zealand does for the Indigenous community in Australia, I think there would be a lot of success, because it's so different. Like there's such a big, inclusive and encouraging atmosphere in New Zealand. I mean, there's still more that can be done, but it's so encouraging for young Māori to try and succeed. And it's not that we're giving it to them, we're just enabling them a platform to rise.
But I also think we have a lot to learn from the culture.
100%.
Because I have to admit, my Te Reo knowledge is very limited. My mum's fluent, which has just been very empowering. But it's what you learn from the language and how they carry themselves, and it is a sense of family, and it is a sense of culture. And I just feel like New Zealand as a place has a lot to learn from that.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's coming. It is coming back. It's the fastest increasing language in New Zealand at the moment.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like I come from Australia. Australia, mate. And like I worked in Aboriginal communities as a police officer, and I was heavily involved with the Indigenous community through rugby league and all that. So I've got a lot of time and a lot of friends that are incredible, and they have Indigenous backgrounds. So to come over here and try and embrace that, the Māori, because like obviously I've got a Māori wife, and my young fella's got a whakapapa that goes all the way up. Pretty cool stuff. So I'm trying to learn it all and go through that. So I think that's really important for my business, and all businesses would do well to sort of try and really accelerate that cultural awareness. And and we learn a really good lesson at the retreat. Is it's not about us being a savior. It's not about that. It's not about me coming and trying to save young Māori. It's about just give them a platform and let them save themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the best message that I got out of that was the way in which you provide that platform. So it's not about here, take my hand. It's about, you know, go and harvest yourself.
Yeah, and probably on that note, and sorry, probably last touch point before I go on too many tangents here is
no, all good, bro.
and in the same light, one really big thing that the Power Moves retreat really drilled into me is at the start of this we talked about outdated terms and we threw around the E word, and I just feel like from the Power Moves retreat I've been really hard up on one more outdated term, and when it comes down to business is it's a modern day, and I just feel like there's no space on this earth anymore for a boss.
Yeah, no,
leaders. You need leaders.
Yeah,
you need leaders, and it's the people who go to their team and say, "Hey guys, here's the importance in this cultural thing," but instills the actual worth in that. They're not saying you need to go learn this for this reason and this reason, but it says this is cool, this is great, this is why we're doing these things. Who wants to be a part of it? And I have to do a massive shout out to my boy Monty as well, because he's
mate. I shouted out Monty last week because everyone knows I got the biggest man crush on that dude. But so Monty, 2 weeks in a row, you'll probably get a shout out every week if I'm honest, because you're a legend, bro, a legend.
Yeah, and he carried me through his last boxing 10-week boot camp, and I never said it to him, so if he's listening, this is probably going to be the first time he hears it, but my fitness went up, 100%, but probably what I took more from that than anything was his leadership style and his leadership skill. And
I still think it's crazy that anyone wants to do boxing with him. Have you YouTubed that bloke and the stinks he's been in on the rugby league field?
Yeah, I've gone a few sparring rounds, and like you get the odd one off and he comes straight back.
Bro, he can throw, man.
He can throw. He can throw.
Oh.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so that's us for the day. Like I said, Mad Mondays is going to be a really light-hearted segment, and it's supposed to be about giving some people enjoyment over lunch break on a Monday just to set their minds for the week. So this was a more serious one, but I thought it was important to touch on mental health while that sort of momentum's there, and that comes off the back of Tangaroa. So look, I've got a lot of plans to get a lot of cool people on the show, but you know, Leon's an absolute legend, so it's been a privilege to have you on the show, and if it's all the same to you, you'll probably be back again.
Oh, I'd love to, and yeah, thank you for having me. Like, mental health, it's something that's very close to my heart, and any chance I get to hopefully instill some kind of positive feeling towards it, it's great. And God, sorry, tangent. You get me in front of a mic and it's shutting me up.
Are you sure you're not from Australia?
No, I'm pretty sure of that. But on the side of mental health, there's something really cool happening in Auckland, and the event's not a really well-run event. But, there's a philosopher by the name of Alan Watts, died in the late 70s, and he's someone who's instilled a lot around my own understanding of mental health. But there's a film going out this coming Monday. It's $20. It's held in some theatre. And his whole thing is about the life is incredibly difficult, but it's about finding the simplicity in that. So if there's anyone out there struggling with any issue, whether it be motivation to take that next step forward or something that's a little bit deeper and darker, it's going to be an incredible watch. So search Alan Watts on Google. If you need that little motivation, if you need that little pickup, $20 next Monday, and he's changed my life. So I recommend going and seeing that.
Mean, bro. Well, that's it from us today for this week. Like I said, if you want to get in touch, just go on the handles here. You can find us through Switch Aotearoa. And just like, subscribe, get involved. This is a great platform for us to do a lot of good things, and that's what we plan to do. So that's it. Sure.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.